Hey guys, Joshua Adams here, and I'm here with Blake Stewart, Managing Partner of Stewart Law. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey Josh, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So, when it comes to legal stuff, it just scares me out of my mind. So, when this new law came out, 718, 111, 12G, I'm sure you've memorized that already.
718, 111, 12G.
You got it.
No
nice.
looking.
Florida statute, you didn't even look. That's awesome. So when this came out and some of our clients started asking about it for HOAs and condo associations, we said, hold on, time out. We're going to go ask our friends a little bit more about this, learn a little bit more about it. And so we did that. We chatted with a few guys, and you were one of them. I asked you to come in. You and I spent some time just learn a little bit about it.
Sure.
So what I asked Blake to do is come in and just chat with me a little bit, maybe educate you guys a little bit on some of the commonly asked questions.
Sure.
So I'm going to dive into it. What are your thoughts on it as a whole? Kind of your thoughts on the new statute, kind of what we have to follow.
Realistically, I don't think this statute is anything new or groundbreaking. I mean, obviously it creates like an electronic requirement for the condominium associations, but really all of the documents that the statute is requiring be kept on this new portal are documents that condo associations were required to maintain anyway.
Makes
sense. Things like contracts, assessments, meeting minutes, meeting times and dates. This is all stuff that traditionally was mailed, or you'd have to pick up your phone and call them up, right? You'd have to ask for it, and of course there would be time requirements for the association to respond to your request. And really, this new statute just kind of streamlines it electronically.
Brings it up to date to hey, you got to have it on your website now.
Exactly.
And you mentioned to me you felt that was pretty much good for everybody. It made things easier, it made things more transparent.
I think it is good for everybody because it takes, obviously it doesn't supplant the requirement that the condominium associations maintain these records, but now I think now, you've got the opportunity to scan in and they're sort of memorialized electronically forever, one hopes. And so now it's not so much a case of, you've got an association member that wants to come down and review the documents and print the documents. And you have to make sure you have somebody available to do that. Other than the fact that it creates a new requirement, I think generally it's good for everything.
That makes sense. One of the first things it talks about is having either an independent website, either wholly owned and operated by the association, or in summary, paraphrasing again, I got to be careful when I do that, but you're the legal guy. But basically, either they own it entirely or they rent or lease it from a third party, right? That makes sense.
It does make sense that this is how the statute was written. Incredibly confusing, but I think your summary sort of hits the nail on the head. When you read the actual requirement, it makes very little sense. A website or web portal operated by a third-party provider with whom the association owns, leases, or rents. Right. So what that means is that if you run your own website and you're an enterprising condominium association, now you have to put your portal on your website. Right. If you hire someone else to do your website, you have to pay that person that does your website to put the portal on your website.
Why don't they just say it? That sounds so much simpler, right? So they could either own their own website and have it on there, or rent or lease one that another party controls. Correct. Simple enough. It's a control issue. Yep, that makes sense. They have to have control of it one way or another.
Absolutely.
That's their responsibility to maintain control of their website. Right. Okay, that makes sense. One of the major things here was that portal has to be a location that is inaccessible to the general public, but accessible only to employees and members of the association, correct?
That is correct. So it's going to be a part of the normal website. So if you go on and you see like the Global Exchange Condominium Association, just pick that off your sign.
I saw that. Yeah, it's one of my other clients.
You go on their website and there are portions for the public to view. You can see the registered address. You can see certain information about the association. But you won't be able to, the general public won't be able to access those condominium-related documents.
Makes sense. The requirement talks about a username and password needing to be provided upon request. So it can't just be a single password-protected page. It actually has to be a username and password specifically. So one of the ways around it in the past has been people just put a password on the page, and it's the same password for everybody. Yeah. And in this case, it has to be a username and password for each individual.
Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. What do you think about that?
From a technology standpoint, it's a lot more complex. one of the things that we found a lot of people doing when this law came out was kind of a little bit of the fear mongering. They can use the scary wording and the tech talk and kind of say, hey, this is really, really hard. It does make it more complex, and certainly in terms of not having to have one password. But a lot of these login systems have already been done. And for us, for example, we had built login systems like this in the past for other associations that didn't even need the log requirement. So when the law came out, we said, oh, we have a login. Here it is. Now let's just add these other components. So I think it's important, an important distinction to say, hey, you need a username and password for each user, but it's not really that scary, to be honest. It sounds scarier than it is.
Well, I do have a few more questions about that.
Perfect.
It does seem to me that from a practical standpoint, why not just have the one login, the one password, and then, of course, only the residents will have access to it. And I understand what you're saying about how it's not too much more. It's got to be a little bit more complex.
A little bit, yeah.
But the way I thought about it, I don't know why. I guess it's because I spent so much time in gated communities when I was a teenager. But, in the gated community, I think you had kind of two choices. There were some gated communities where it was just one password,
right,
and everybody got it. And then, of course, the homeowners' children gave the password out to all their friends.
Right.
But it didn't really matter because in those communities where everybody got their own gate code, the homeowners' children would then give out their personal gate code.
Right.
Although, now that I think about it, I think I do remember that when that happened, they would get a report of who was using the gate.
That's exactly it, which is part of the control here, I think. So it doesn't specifically say must provide unit owner with a unique username and password. It doesn't say that. It says username and password. So technically, it doesn't specify that it has to be unique. That's what I'm reading.
Oh, so you're saying that it could go... See, even lawyers can use some statutory interpretation.
Well, from a technical standpoint, it doesn't say that. But at the same time, it could imply that. And that's where you get into that weird gray area.
You're right. It says a username and password.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
So that was kind of one thing we stumbled on. Went, okay, well, I mean, it doesn't say you have to. What we're doing for all of our clients, we're providing unique ones. I mean, that just keeps them safe, covers it.
Yeah.
You get that log, like you were saying, from those gated communities where, okay, who logged in?
Right.
So they can see, okay, this one login's getting, 100 logins every week. Okay, it's not just you. Somebody, you gave it away.
And they've been out of town since fall.
Exactly, right? So I think that's worth kind of thinking about.
Okay.
I think the erring on the safe side is creating the unique one. But again, technically, it doesn't say that.
It doesn't. You're right. You know what else that is missing?
What's that?
A time requirement. So it just says you must provide a username and password.
Right.
Doesn't say when.
Oh gosh. Talk about opening up Pandora's box. I think we'll leave that alone. I think we'll leave that one alone. But I mean, you have the time requirements in other statutes in terms of how quickly they have to provide documents if documents are requested. Which brings me to another question along those lines then. So will providing this username and password fulfill the other requirement, document request requirement, where it says they have to provide it within 5 or 10 days or whatever it is? Well, that's outside of the website scope, but will providing a username and password fulfill that request?
If they're making a traditional document request, in my humble opinion, I think we say IMHO on Reddit. IMHO, I would argue that it does not fulfill that requirement because not everybody has the internet. Right.
And especially I've had conversations with others in terms of if that person has disabilities or for some reason can't access the internet.
Sure.
Now you have created a boundary. You've created a potential question mark around, did you actually provide the access? So so far, what the unanimous response I've had when I've asked that question around has been same as you. In my opinion, I can't say for certain without, but it doesn't sound like it does fulfill it. You have to give them the document as well as, hey, in the future, here's your username and password, and hope that helps cut down on those requests at least. So from my understanding at this point, it doesn't fulfill it. That's kind of what the unanimous I've heard back from. The next section talks about all the documents that have to be up there. I don't think we really should dive into each individual document today, but one that I've had a lot of questions about was this one here where it talks about any management agreement, lease, or other contract, et cetera, et cetera. Responsibility. Summaries of bids for materials, equipment, services must be maintained on the website for 1 year. What's a summary? Because that's open to interpretation.
It doesn't, well, I'm a construction guy, and I can tell you that the form of bid is different for every contractor.
Yep.
I think I could see where some contractors may get a little pained.
Yep.
If they're having to disclose material costs, for instance.
That's exactly the concern.
Labor costs, things like that. If you're an enterprising condominium association member, you can sort of reverse engineer and do the math, and then, we've all got that cousin Jimmy with the flooring company who gets stuff for $8
Right.
a square foot.
And this guy was charging $9.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Well, watch out. So I think that we may see a fight there.
I would agree with that.
I think that what is a bid summary? I mean, I would argue that it would be the scope of work, and then you could just put a flat rate at the bottom.
That makes sense.
I don't really have a problem with that. I could see where probably some condominium members may want a little bit more detailed information,
Right.
because at the end of the day, it's the members who really pay for things like this
Right.
through assessments. So, but I would argue that if you provide a number and the number is the lowest number and that's the one you go with, you're probably not going to see a lot of complaints.
Right.
So,
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. I think that's one that a lot of people have been asking about. Skipping down a few as well, there's I and J here actually cover things that could potentially be conflict of interest. So I kind of goes a little bit more wordy about it, but J's pretty specific. Any contract or document has to be uploaded to this site that regarding a conflict of interest or possible conflict of interest as provided in a whole bunch of numbers.
Sure. Well, I think that the easiest way to explain that is with the bid process. You're going to remodel the lobby in the condominium.
Right.
And you're going to open the bid process up, open bidding, invite contractors to come in, and it's very possible that one of the members of the board of directors may be a contractor or a constructor,
or partner in one,
or a partner in one, or something of that nature, and that's okay. There's nothing that says that he can't submit a bid, provided that he's competitive and there's no double dealing.
Right.
But this is a requirement that he inform the board of directors and the members that he would have to come out and say, okay, I do have an interest in this company. We'll be providing a bid, but I'll be going through the same bid process. That's really no different than what we have now, because you'd be able to go and make a paper request to view the bids as a member of a condominium association and review assessments and things like that. And you would have to turn, in that same situation, a board member with a conflict of interest would have to submit a document stating that he's got a conflict of interest.
So it's just putting it online in an easier to access area.
It's putting it online in the easier to access area.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. There's a few other things here about meeting notes, etc. I think it's pretty clear. But 3 down here talks about items that shouldn't be uploaded, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so there is certain information that even condominium associations aren't privy to, and all it's basically looks to me like an oopsie clause. It's saying if they're not supposed to see it, don't put it on the website, or if you have to upload a required document, but within that document are things that they're not supposed to see,
so
redact it.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Redact it, yeah.
Okay.
So, oopsie. It's funny because what they don't have in the statute is like a hammer for the oopsie clause. So what happens if they accidentally post some information
they shouldn't?
What is the penalty? So
interesting. That's a little scary, actually.
New statute.
Right. Here it comes. So Blake, I appreciate you coming down, just chatting with us a little bit. I really appreciate the time. It helps clarify some questions I had. I think some questions some of our clients and prospects have, certainly. So thanks so much for your time.
Not so fast. I'd like to turn the tables on you.
Sure, absolutely.
What do you think about, as a tech guy and a web guy, what do you think about the new statute?
I think it's a lot scary. It's a lot less scary than it sounds. Again, I mentioned this earlier. We've had some of our clients mentioning, hey, we're getting people coming in saying this is going to cost $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to make you compliant. And it's just bogus.
Will you do it for 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
you heard it here.
And so really what we found, though, is that a lot of the systems, they sound super complex. They sound scary. This stuff's all been done before. There's nothing in here, requirement-wise, technology-wise, that we haven't done before as a company. And it's just a matter of saying, oh, well, we don't normally need that, but we'll take it from this other client that we were building and let's put it here. And there's a login system. Okay, I don't have to build from scratch. Oh, a document management system? Yeah, okay. I just need to add revision control to it.
Okay.
So there's some things like that, that we can do for even less than the number you mentioned. It just depends on what they need, right? When it comes to an association, do they just need this just to be compliant? That's a lot simpler. Do they want to they want to present and look wonderful and beautiful and help try to build property values and look good to realtors, et cetera? Well, it's a little bit different. We might have a little bit more complex site because there may be more design time and marketing messaging going on. Do they want to put up new for sale properties, for lease properties, garage sale announcements, right? Do they want to have other things they need? Well, then that might bring the price up. But certainly these guys coming out there and saying, hey, this is going to be $30,000, it's just a little bit of fear-mongering that I'm not really proud of, that our industry sometimes will do. So I would just say, keep cool, talk to somebody, talk to an attorney, talk to an agency, and just say, hey, really, what does this mean, and what is it going to take to build? Does this really have to be a ginormous, huge project? No, it really doesn't. So that would be my take on it. And actually, one other item that I would mention is a lot of them are still rushing for that July 1st date, which has actually been pushed out, right? It was amended. So
it was amended. There was a March 13th amendment that was put in front of Governor Scott, which he signed on the 23rd,
right.
And it bought all of you condo associations out there an extra 6 months. So the deadline's been extended to January 1st, 2019.
Exactly. Well, thanks for turning that around. I'm glad I was able to share a little bit. Again, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Always
Thank you.
a pleasure, Josh.
Stay awesome.